I'm Bhavidhir V. Bharadwaj. Welcome to episode 10 of Genesis of Tomorrow. The following is a conversation about quantum computing, quantum startups, and the entrepreneurship market, quantum impact on economy, society, the world at large, answers to the quantum realm and scientific study within our ancient texts, building a quantum nation more. With Dr. L. Venkata Subramaniam, an IBM researcher and quantum engineer with his PhD from IIT Delhi, who is an experienced leader in the domain of AI and quantum computing with 38 patents, 150 papers, 3,300 citations, and a book to his name, and is further devoted and dedicated to pushing India to the absolute forefront for leading the vanguard of the quantum computing and technology at the global stage. Also, 86.1% of you watching this have not subscribed yet. If you get even the slightest bit of value from our show, please support us by clicking that subscribe button so that we can keep improving the quality of the episodes and keep on bringing such wonderful guests over for you. And now, without any further ado, let's get right into it. Enjoy and thank you. All right. Before anything else, what is a quantum nation? What exactly is the idea, the vision, the conceptualization of this notion of a quantum nation, and how exactly are we to achieve it as a country?
See, the notion is very simple. Okay, so as a country, there was a time when we were very, very. Um, yeah, I think half the world's GDP was out of India. Um, we were an innovative nation. Okay, we innovated, whether it was medicine, whether it was astronomy, whether it was mathematics. In all these areas, we had the innovators right here in some of the biggest universities. Now this quantum nation is about us reclaiming that authority, that aura, that what we were, claiming it back. Yes, we lost it for a few years. We there were things we did not do, but now we are back. So if you compare 1947 to now, 1947, how many engineering colleges did we have? 27. How many do we have now? 9,000. How many management schools? Zero. How many do we have now? 4,500. So we are now poised, we are right there. Now it's for us to just utilize the time, the demographics, the talent, the young people that we have to get there. So Quantum Nation is about leadership. It is about a nation which realizes its full potential and gives opportunity to everybody to innovate. So we are back to innovation.
And what exactly puts us, India, as a key player in the global demographic in the quantum context?
So the number one thing is talent. Okay, people don't realize it, but I mean, we see it on the IBM systems, for example. Where are the users from? The users from India are right up there, among the top. Sometimes it's US, sometimes it's India, but it's both of them competing against each other. And so we have this talent. Okay, this is the amazing talent which we have, and this is where we score. Okay, now it's the time to provide opportunity to this talent, to utilize this talent, to focus it, and just get there. In fact, today was the announcement of the startups under the National Quantum Mission. So I'm just coming from there in Delhi, the India Habitat Center, where the Minister of Minister of Science and Technology announced the startups that they are supporting. Okay, 8 of them. So it is all about talent right now. That's what we have. This is the time for us to nurture it, to grow it, to focus it, And I think we are on that track also. We are right on that path to enable that. So today's national quantum mission announcement was just about that, funding these young people, enabling them, and for them to become world beaters.
You've been talking about talent and its prevalence in India, our country, and going a little bit further exactly on that, you write in your book that the prevailing notion that Indian parents coerce their offspring into fields of engineering, science, and medicine fails to recognize an underlying cultural heritage. I was really, uh, how do you say, this is something that oftentimes gets missed out on this general debate of engineering or pursuing a dream or passion. People forget that basic scientific literacy isn't essential to any and every society in general. But I would like for you to elaborate upon this. What is the entire thought behind it?
Yeah, so see, in fact, I mention it in my book also. My mother, she was the topper in Madras State in the 19 late 50s, but financial situation and other things did not allow her to go to college. She went into a job, but the scientific temper that she has, and the kind of scientific thinking in everything that she does. And I'm not just talking about my mother, okay? I see other mothers and other fathers around me also with that very scientific temper, very scientific way of thinking. And science seems to be inherent, whether it is, our knowledge of astrology. I mean, though we consider astrology to be a not a, I mean, a pseudoscience or whatever, but even that involves charting the positions of the stars very accurately, okay? So it involves science. What you do with that science to do things is fine. I mean, you agree, don't agree, but the location, position of the stars, that is centuries old, okay? And that continues today. That scientific way of thinking about our universe continues even today, okay? And whether it is our religious texts like the Upanishads, Vedas, Gita, all of them, I mean, there are things there which talk about the Big Bang, how the universe started and how it goes in cycles from expansion to contraction. So all of these are ideas which are there through stories, okay? You don't have to go to college to learn this scientific temper. But once you give this rigorous scientific way of thinking to this, the new generation, they're able to grasp it very, very quickly, okay? So I don't, for example, from in artificial intelligence, whether it is, acceptance of even quantum mechanics, which has confounded the biggest scientists. But some of these things I see, youngsters just naturally accept it, as if it's just part of their understanding or their background. So it's and that thinking is very, very special, and I don't see it elsewhere. So when I, today I go to a lot of colleges, I meet a lot of youngsters, and what I'm realizing is that they don't need anything from my generation other than enablement, just the ability, they have all the ideas. They don't need any ideas from me or anybody of my generation. They are bold, they have the ideas. All they need is that enablement, the ability to carry that idea forward. And that's what, something like today's national quantum mission announcement of the startup program, and announcement of giving funding to some of these startups is all about. We are already seeing this, startup story in India. It has already reached us. Only thing is, it hasn't reached deep tech yet, okay? Because deep tech requires more investment, more a longer incubation period, whereas if it is e-commerce or other things, it is, the technology is already there, it's about execution there, whereas in deep tech you have to build the technology also. Okay, the whole technology stack has to be built. So there has to be a new thinking there. And that's why I say that, we need to enable our youngsters to be able to just carry their dreams. We don't need to do anything else. We don't need to give them dreams, we don't need to give them vision, they already have
There are a few tangents that we can take, but starting from the mention of how you mentioned that the scientific temperament is very much inbuilt and imbibed in our ancient texts, that scientific study umpteen times. How significant is it then for us to conduct probably a thorough revision of sorts of these ancient scriptures of ours, not only from a mere abstraction for general life wisdom point of view, but rather thorough scientific experimentation and study?
it. Actually, that's very important, and we actually need to. So, if you see, there are these chairs in many foreign universities to study Indian, history, Indian Vedas and things. But unfortunately, we don't have these in our Indian universities yet. Okay, so somehow right now the thinking is that and it's true to some extent also, there was a time when we had a scientific basis for what we were saying, but after that that got lost. Okay, so for several centuries, we did not study it, or we did not, take it with that rigor with which it was there in maybe even, I don't know, 10th century or something, after which it seems to have become lost, right? So that, what we lost now, if you look at it, the language of science and maths has changed. Okay, the notation, if you will call it, it is more the Western notation. Okay, the Western way of doing it, and that's how all of us Indians have also been trained now. You don't find anybody using the notation of Takshila and others, because they had their own way of proving theorems. They had their own rigorous way of proving scientific things, from surgery to mathematical formulae to everything. But right now, what is the notation? The notation is the maths that we use today, the proving system that we have. For everything we conduct experimentation, and then we have a hypothesis, we then prove that hypothesis. There are now laws like, for example, the Newtonian mechanics, quantum mechanics. So the science as it was then, with its notational, way of doing it, and how it was, I think we have lost it. So and the only way now to revive it is by following what we know today, going deeper, and maybe combining it, having this knowledge of our ancient text to now see, oh, okay, there was this hypothesis there, how do I prove it? Because that proof is all lost now, it's gone. So some of it looks like superstition, some of it people say all sorts of things. But to get it back, you're right, there has to be some structured methodology where we believe in ourselves. That confidence, I see that confidence coming back in the kids now, saying that I can do it, that boldness, which probably was missing in my generation. We all went into the jobs, the 9 to 5 and salaried things. Now there is boldness in the way people are approaching things, and that will lead to us, getting back and understanding our history and what we were. I think it will come back naturally. There's no way of forcing it. You can't force it, because knowledge which was lost has to be re, created. You can't. It just doesn't come like that.
A step to do that might probably be becoming well versed with the basic ideas and terminologies of in regard to quantum computing, because we are talking about that.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
Becoming well versed with the general idea and concept about the subject matter for
Correct.
everybody.
Yes.
For example, right now there is a lot of um, call it hype around becoming proficient with using AI in your everyday workflow, right? Because currently AI has got that implementation aspect to it where it can be implemented directly. Quantum computation might not have that right now, but it's on its way towards having that. How significant do you feel would it be for the youth or the general masses, for everyday people in general, to build that intuition and understanding of quantum computing?
Yeah, actually, this is a very important point you're bringing up, because in our, in our background, in our culture, a lot of the quantum mechanics things are inherently there. Okay, yes, we lost it over a few centuries. We have lost that way of thinking, way of doing those things, but it is there. It so for us, as you said, we need to go deeper into this to understand it better. And I feel we Indians will be rightly placed to make contributions in this field, given sort of centuries of acceptance of this thought of quantum mechanics. All these superposition, entanglement, they're all very natural things in our scriptures, if you look at it. So these are things which, if we get into this deeply, as you said, if our youngsters, I think, are well, and that's why I also feel that, a lot of the talent we are seeing is present in India. And in fact, if you look at it, colleges are not teaching it yet, very few colleges. So all the children that are quantum mechanics trained are actually self learned. They have done it themselves without a teacher, which is even more, you know s- uh, nice, that they did it all by themselves. And so that also shows that, there is something in the culture which allows acceptance of this thing. And I think this AI, if you look at what is AI doing to us today, for example, I might not be a good writer, but now I can create excellent quality. I just need to put my idea there, and the words which I might not be very good at, let's say English or Hindi, but now it enables me to create a storyline out of my thoughts, right? So in some sense it has made a good writer of all of us. At the least, all of us have become very good writers, grammatically correct English or Hindi or whatever language you want. And this is only going to keep increasing. Okay, the power of AI is, this is the beginning, it will keep increasing. But what this also now means is that we humans now need to evolve. Our next level of evolution has to happen fast, because I see all these debates about, oh, will AI take over, AI will become more intelligent than humans. But if you look at the, again, the Hindu or the Indian scriptures, they all talk about the human mind having infinite capacity and the ability not just to think alone, also to connect with other minds and to really think big things. And again, as you said, again, quantum mechanics, I think, is a very important aspect in that whole evolution chain for us humans, into the new way in which we are going to think, in the new way in which we are going to utilize AI to become even more productive. And if you look at, Hindus or Indian things, they always talk about the mind, where there are things you can do with your mind, that because everything, as we know, originates in the mind. Okay, so there are ways in which your mind can go to that, it can keep raising its level. Okay, and that's what at least our saints and all used to do through meditation and all the chanting and all those things. So I think there is, now we probably, where we bring quantum and our earlier learning and thinking back together, and that's where I think the future really lies.
What also matters is being able to cultivate and elevate this inherent talent pool that we have. And one aspect that we must focus on is research and development. It's a concurrent trend or pattern that can be observed in all the leading players in the global diaspora, that they heavily value and curate research and development.
Yeah,
Something that is, for the general masses in our country, undervalued and understated by, which leads to maybe the uh, a very basic example is how PhDs and researchers in India are paid significantly less as compared to the pay cuts and the pay scales outside abroad. How do
yes.
you think we can change this lack of investment towards research and sort of minimize the brain drain, the actual brain drain in this situation?
Yeah. Yes, see, this is a very important thing, because if you look at it, things like whether it is semiconductors, whether it is any hardware, whether it is fiber optics, all these were invented by Indians, and they are the ones who built these, companies which made. So, for example, father of Pentium, Vinod Dham, right? All these people were trained in our institutions, at least the undergraduate, and then they had to go out for two reasons, right? One is, as you said, an sort of an undervalued research ecosystem within the universities. Okay, where we pay them less, we don't give them the equipment needed, or the uh, things they need to do their experiments and all of that. That's number one, right? Number two is also the job market, right? So unless you are actually building a industry, at some point that person, if they find that, okay, I can't work here, there is not, I mean, my talent will not be utilized within this ecosystem, then they will be forced to leave, right? And that is something which has happened historically with us, right? We produce some of the best students, best minds, best researchers, and many of them had to go out for one of these two reasons, right? So now that's, both of these need to be addressed simultaneously, because if you address only one, then the other one kicks in, and that takes away people, right? So, for example, in the National Quantum Mission, one of the goals is to build up this, this capacity building thing for higher studies, right? Where people within our universities are able to go and work on cutting edge or learn cutting edge technology as part of their masters and PhD programs. Number one. Number two is the local industry. Okay, so in all of this, so the goal here is threefold. One is academia comes in with good ideas, then at some point the professor and the students need to translate it into technology, right? So that translation can happen in two ways. One is technology transfer to industry. So industry takes that, half built solution and makes it market ready, right? Makes it into a product. So that's one. The second is the students, or the, the PhDs, or whoever are studying and who have worked on that are enabled to do their startups on that. Okay. And so if you look at the eight startups which got funded today in the National Quantum Mission announcement, they are all of the second kind, where the PhD students or the faculty who have been doing research in certain areas, they have now founded these startups and those are being funded. Okay. um, so both of these, the one about licensing technology to existing industry, I think that also needs to be looked at uh, very seriously, because now we have, very large companies in India. Okay, 100 billion, 200 billion kind of companies are now there in India, right? And these companies are also looking to now raise their level, because at some point they were maybe just building services or solutions and things, but then now their ambition is to build products and to scale themselves, right? So I think both of these will get enabled, but we need to accelerate that, because in a technology area like quantum, where there are 34 national quantum missions around the world, 34 countries have got missions in quantum, right? Each one of them why do they have it? They all understand the value of quantum computing. They know that if you take the leadership now, you might have several decades of advantage, technological, economic advantage over the others, right? And so each one of them is also keen to attract this talent, and they know from past history that Indian students are good. They are good targets for attracting, and that I already see it. Okay, I see our startups getting pulled to other countries to establish their headquarters in other countries. They are being pulled by these countries, number one. Number two, our talent, they're also getting pulled. So it's high time. I mean, we cannot blame the young people who leave. We can't blame them, because they are talented people working at the cutting edge of knowledge. Now, if you tell them, no, sorry, you can't do this anymore. You learnt all this for nothing. You now tone down and go do this other thing which is well below what you can actually achieve. That's not the way it'll work. We have to provide them opportunities within India.
I think that beautifully summarizes how there's a need to essentially have a synthesis, or if not a synthesis, then a synergy between industry and academia in order to have this talent, cater to this talent, the facilities and the opportunities they need to scale this entire quantum demographic and platform. But taking a step forward, what about what do you think would be the most, since it's a multidisciplinary field, quantum computing, and it requires, and you've explicitly mentioned in your book how different uh, people with different expertise, fields of expertise, can contribute to this overarching field of quantum computing and quantum technology. Very briefly, or probably taking a little bit of time rather, and explaining it, how can people from different aspects of science, may it be biology, chemistry, mathematics, physics, computer sciences, how can they individually contribute towards this field in their own way?
Yeah, sure. So if you look at drug discovery, okay, drug discovery is what? It is coming up with new molecules and seeing how they interact with the proteins in the body. Okay, so proteins in the body. So if there's a protein like this, something happens to it like this, then the medicine has to go and fix it, right? So that's what medicines do basically. Okay, now, to be able to do this, if we just follow the path that we have been following, you have to now, find these molecules in the labs And in the wet labs, you have to, in your test tubes, you have to try a bunch of things, put it through animal testing, human testing, all those things, right? Why? Because we don't have a method to actually simulate what is going on in that interaction, right? So to be able to do this, okay, now there is compute power. Okay, compute power is there to some extent. You can't do everything, but whether if you look at your CPU as the basic unit of computation, and then you have your QPUs and the GPUs as the accelerators for your AI and quantum and all these things. So for all of this now, um, so we so these accelerators are coming in, right? So our goal now is to utilize
Oh,
these technologies which are present with us to do the drug discovery. So for doing this, you need the computer scientist, you need the biologist or the drug, pharmacist or the drug discovery scientist to also come in, and they might not even know what is computing, right? What they know is how does the medicine work, how do the proteins and the medicines interact. That is what they are good at. So, to be able to solve any realistic problem, we need to bring together the domain experts, the algorithms experts, the compute experts who will actually do the coding, execution, all of that. So, to build these teams is very, very important. So, for anything that you want to solve which is of importance, the best way to do it is by bringing together a diverse set of people who are solving and attacking this problem from different angles so that it can be done quickly and easy.
yes. Oh my
I'm
God.
back.
Okay, so you were talking about drug discovery and all
Oh,
of that.
yeah, drug
Yeah.
discovery.
Hmm.
So, something like drug discovery requires, the biologist, the person who understands how the medicine works in a body, and it requires now the computational people also, the people who will actually implement it on a computer. And in fact, you need an algorithms person separately, who will write the algorithm and then somebody implements it, right? So whether it is and any problem of importance, whether it is weather change, climate change, whether it is agriculture, whether it is medicine, all of these problems actually require multi disciplinary people to come together to solve it, and that's the only way we will really solve it. Otherwise it becomes a intellectual exercise for any one category of person to just do some mental experiments and come up with some small solutions. But if you want to really solve a real problem, you need people of different skill sets to come together, and that's how we will do it faster, we'll do it better, and all of that. And in fact, I see a lot of that now happening, where industries understand that they have the domain knowledge, but they don't have the skills to maybe write an algorithm to solve it, how to implement it. Some of those things they don't have, or they might not have the time to innovate, to figure out that to solve this problem, what are the different methods that I could try out. There can be 10 different ways of doing it, but which is the right one for me? And I don't, as an industry, I might not have the time. So I think a lot of this is also getting a boost now that the government has this CSR program, corporate social responsibility program, where part of your small percent of your profit needs to be reinvested into society. Okay, and earlier it was only for backward, for helping backward society, I mean areas where we were not fully utilizing our potential, like in education or healthcare or rural schools and things. But now research is also one of the areas where people can put CSR, and I'm seeing a lot of industry now putting their CSR funds into research. into universities. And I think these are all very positive trends where multidisciplinary skills, domain experts, all of them coming together with specialized skills in computing, in hardware and various other things.
It directly correlates to the economic impact as well that the advancement in quantum technology will have on our country. What exactly uh, is this economic is this quantum revolution in economy, as you call it in your book? What exactly it is, and how can it aid us, a country that is the fifth largest economy in the world right now, to in the foreseeable future becoming the greatest economy even on the face of the planet? What are the parameters that can directly aid and assist into?
Yeah, so it is innovation. The day you enable young people to whatever ideas they have, to help to enable them to implement them, whether they fail, they succeed, they will learn and they will go ahead and eventually they will figure it out. That's how people evolve, okay, and youngsters evolve faster than anybody else, okay. And today we have that demographic advantage, okay. We have a lot of young people, and all we need to do is to enable them to soar, with their ideas which they already have. Just give them that opportunity to go and implement them. And we know that, for example, if somebody builds a small scale industry, it is going to employ 20 other people, right? So that's something that somebody or the other, once they start doing these things, it adds to the growth of that economy, okay. So innovation, where innovation is driving new ways of solving human societal problems and enabling growth in terms of employment, in terms of exports, in terms of it's all about solving real problems, okay. And we have a bunch of real problems in India, okay. And so, for example, you just look at our DPI, digital public infrastructure. 10 years back or so, or even earlier, with the Aadhaar card, that Aadhaar number, it was a simple exercise. All of us Indians went and gave our fingerprints, iris, face reco, and all of that. And now look at the beautiful amount of applications of that. You go to airport, Digiyatra, looks at your face, lets you in. You go to bank, KYC, which used to take 4 days, 5 days, 1 week, done within a few seconds, okay. You look at all this direct bank transfer of subsidies and all of that. Earlier, we know in the past there was corruption is still there, but it has been, at least we are trying to eliminate it by using technology like this. And the people who are the most, the least, in the society, people who earn the least are the ones who are now benefiting from all of this, right? So we were able to use a technology in a way that now all our transactions are mobile based. You put together all online transaction, every transaction in the world, and they still don't add up to what we Indians now do, right? And and but to be able to do that, we built beautiful technology, okay, that it's fail proof. Do you ever see your UPI failing for long periods of time and all that? No, we've built rugged, foolproof technology. Now, of course, there are other things we have to tackle: fraud. People are you doing wrong things with this and all of that. But these are all things which we will solve one by one. Now, in the same way, quantum is a new technology where we don't even know what are the, so for example, in 1983, when Tim Berners-Lee invented, internet, he had no clue that we were going to do Zoom calls or calls like these, right? those were all applications which young people came up with. Okay, people enabled these young people to just go out and build out these things. And similarly, internet sat in the lab for years together. Only when two things happened: number one, there was a browser called Netscape, which of course Netscape is no longer there, but that is the first way which showed us how do you interact with the internet. Number two, Google. It came and showed us how to search that huge vast amount of data which is there in the internet. So same way, every technology needs young people to come up with useful solutions which are going to solve real problems which are there. And as I said, there are several real problems. Poverty is still there in India. Agriculture, still the production per hectare is very low compared to what it can really be. Even though we've come a long, long way. Don't make any mistake there, because 1947 we couldn't even feed ourselves. We used to people used to go hungry, our parents, everybody. It's not just a small fraction of society, though. In fact, the majority of the society was like that. But we solved that within 10, 20 years. Green revolution came, and now we can feed anybody, just not ourselves, right? So same way, now you are seeing innovation come up. Internet came in the West in the early 90s. Okay, and it hit the 10 million user mark in 1993 or so in the US. Okay, and you saw innovation just take off. Amazon came, various other companies came. In India, that 10 million mark came 10 years later. So when did Flipkart come? It came about 12 years after Amazon. Same thing. Even a copycat has to needs that base to be there. Because if there is nobody using internet, what do you do with a Flipkart or an Amazon, right? But once it came, there were these Bansals who knew that I can create this company, I can create a Flipkart. Okay, now we don't do copycat anymore. DPI, original, all from the bottoms up, it's original. Okay, and that is a big, big change. Okay, and that's going to only accelerate now. It's only the beginning. Okay, that's why you see India is now the startup capital. You have all the youngsters thinking, oh, I can do it. I was recently in IIM Kashipur. Many of the young people there uh, are saying they want to do a startup. Okay, but of course there are some constraints. For example, the fees there is about 20 lakhs for 2 years. Many of them take a loan, so you can't do a startup until you have paid back your loan. Okay, so there are real uh, things we still have to sort out, but young people are sorting them out, and they are figuring out ways in which they are going to contribute and innovate.
That directly leads us to the discussion about the startup and the entrepreneurial aspect in this quantum domain. What are the key things to keep in mind while starting a quantum startup for anybody who's venturing out to do so?
Yeah. See, usually what I've seen in India is that we look for perfection. Okay. We, if it is a startup, many of the founders, I see them saying that I'm going to create perfect technology and then I'll take it to market. Okay. Whereas if you look at the West, if they put out something fast and something which will be useful for a few people. Okay, once those few people start using it, you now get a lot of feedback, you get a lot of data, and the 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 technology then improves much faster than just the founder of that company trying to think all the possible ways in which it can be perfected. Okay, so we have to come out of that perfection mindset. Okay, which which is good also But in a startup or an entrepreneurial journey, I think the more important thing is to learn from your users, because as the founder you don't know the answers, okay. You just have to accept that fact that, people say customer is king. Customer is really the king, because you might think that you have created the best technology in the world, but if nobody uses it, no use. It is not the best then. You might, I mean, so what you really need is to find 5, 10, 15 people who really think that it will be useful for you, because I for example, I see many founders now, they create these I mean, they say they're going to create a financial application, okay, let's say. And then they're thinking in a very very complicated scientific manner. The easy way out is just go talk to your father or mother, your brother in your house. Ask them, what if I had a solution like this, what would you like? Instead of spending 3 months in the drawing board, just spend 5 days talking to people who you think can be users. So I think this interactive approach, where we don't feel shy about going and talking about what we are trying to build, there's no shyness here. You because every startup pivots. There is no startup I've seen which started with that idea and then in the end also that was the same idea which got implemented. It rarely ever happens like that.
This really leads us right into the invariable discussion about what is the most quickest and most efficient way to convert this idea or vision in your head into a minimum viable product, which you also in your book you term it as the founder's struggle, right? So
Yeah.
what exactly is the most effective and prolific way to build a product from a mere idea that is inside your head?
Yeah. So, see, in the book, I also talk about the fact that in India, money is always tight. Okay. So, the same startup founder, if they go with the same idea, the chances of them landing a big chunk of money for that idea is much larger in many Western countries. Okay, but still many of these startup founders struggle here, and they want to make it. They feel that this is my karma bhumi and this is where I have to do it, they feel. Okay, I've met those founders. Okay, so to them money is always tight. The resources have to be utilized very very cautiously, very judiciously. And what I've seen is that I feel that many of them will benefit from going to some university and utilizing some of the equipment. For example, in quantum, there is a lot of hardware that is often required. Okay, whether it is lasers, photon detectors, and many of these things are expensive, and without funding it would be very hard for anybody to buy this. It's not like you can say that I will start a startup when you don't have that money to buy even the basic equipment, right? So now, of course, that's where software always has a sort of a advantage. The investment is much lower because we have created this cloud infrastructure. The coding skill is also very widely available. But as soon as somebody ventures into something which requires experiments or building hardware and things like that, you need some level of investment. Okay, so here what I feel is if you just go with a raw idea, you're not going to convince any VC. Okay, it's very hard unless you are a well-known figure in that or you have a track record of having done that. So as a young person it will be very hard. So then the only way you can do it is by collaborating with labs within our IITs and ISC and other, TIFR and all these places. By working with them, and most of these universities now have incubators. Okay, so they do want youngsters to come and start doing things, and if you need certain equipment, they try their best, okay, to do it. So I think that small prototype or small, concept which has been, which has come out of your mind and which is now sitting and which can be seen and touched and felt is very important for any VC to jump in. Okay, you need, so you need this idea to come out of your mind, to show it in some form. And what is the cheapest best way to do it? Only the founder can do it, because nobody else, I can't. If you tell me I need a single photon detector, I will go look up on the internet or whatever, I will try and solve it. But as a founder, you are passionate, you feel that's an important problem to solve, and you will figure out ways to do it. Okay, and and that's where I think we need to enable these founders. And that's why I said, for example, today's this national quantum mission, where they've started by funding in the first round 8 startups, um, is a very beautiful, very good thing. And I think this will only accelerate. And there are 4 hubs that have been created: one for computing, communication, sensing, and materials. 4 hubs in India: one in IIT Delhi, IIT Madras, ISC Bangalore, and I'm forgetting the fourth one, IIT Bombay. Okay, so these four. So if you have some ideas, just go there. They have some funding for junior research fellows, senior research fellows. They have positions for masters, PhD. Just go there and start. It's important to start your journey there, so that you are able to build something, put it on the table, and then people can critique it, add to it, say change this, and that is very much needed.
What would be the ideal background, or maybe let me paraphrase it, for somebody who's about to graduate their high school or are in their undergraduate, what is the ideal roadmap for them to pursue in order to build a solid foundation in quantum mechanics, the understanding of quantum mechanics and quantum computing, to then further build a quantum startup?
Yeah. So, see, it is about confidence, number one. So for example, Sam Altman, uh, founder of OpenAI, he dropped out of college in his third year, right? In his BTech, third year, he dropped out, right? But he had that confidence that now I'm ready, I can go and do it. So actually that feeling is very important. You need to feel that I'm ready. It's, for some people it might come in after their PhD. For some people it might come in their masters, or they can just drop out of bachelors. But to what do you need to get that confidence? Okay, to get that confidence, you need a solid understanding of that area where you want to go and work in, right? So number one is that solid understanding, where you feel confident that now I can solve certain problems in this area, right? Number two is that you need to also understand, have that maturity to understand the ecosystem, how the market works. Or if you don't have it, then at least bring a co-founder who has it, right? Because having a team with diverse skills is very, very important. One person needs to understand the finance aspects, One person needs to be a people person who can manage the team and all of that. One person needs to be technical. Of course, sometimes one person is enough, they can be all of these things. But sometimes we are not, not all of us are good at everything, right? Then we should have that ability to collaborate and build things. Because I see a lot of people get into this thing that how much of the startup will I own. Yes, it's important you own a big percentage of it because it's yours, but it is, owning a startup with small value, 100% of it, versus owning a small percentage of a big value startup. There is a lot of difference. You look at any, you look at Google, you look at Facebook, all of them have, they give up some of their equity when they think it is important to, right? So that basic understanding is important. And these days internships are possible, so go do internships in diverse areas. And I see it, young people doing it. In first year they go to some startup, in second year they go to a established e-commerce company, in third year they go to a pure tech company. They're trying to get a feel for everything. Sometimes they go to a finance company. So it is all about, in those 4 years, what are the diverse set of experiences that you can gather, which will help you to build that startup and build it with that confidence. I mean, all of us aren't born with all the skills, right? I mean, we have these training programs in my company where they say we have an inherent, all of us have an inherent, character, so to speak. Somebody might be an introvert, somebody might be an extrovert, but sometimes, our job might require us to do something which we are not inherently built for. Okay, so then the best way is either to learn that skill or to collaborate with somebody who has that skill already.
That was very profound, to say the least. But the next thing that I am intrigued to know about is what has been your journey in regard to this entire quantum sphere? What initially intrigued you? How you got into it? What were the little things that kept on piling up that made your inclination towards this field stronger and stronger?
Yeah, sure. So until about was it 2019 or 2020 maybe, I didn't know the Q of quantum. Okay, I was a AI person, and that's all I used to do. Okay, then somehow, I started, and that's when IBM put out its roadmap also of where quantum will go. Okay, in the future. Okay, so. And also, I started seeing around me, young people. I'm an old person now, but I saw young people getting very interested in this subject. Okay, so I started thinking, okay, let me just at least try what is this, because quantum mechanics, yes, we all studied a little bit of it in our school. After that, maybe in college I did not, in my engineering, only in school, maybe in 11th chemistry or somewhere, that's where we were introduced to these concepts. And then of course we have heard statements like Einstein said God does not play with dice with the universe, spooky action at a distance, all these things. So it was a very intriguing field. Okay, and I was beginning to see that, oh, around me there are all these young people who are getting so excited by this subject. Let me at least go and learn what it is. Okay, so that's what I did summer schools, I watched YouTube videos, I read some books, and that's how I started my quantum journey. Okay, then the next thing I realized is that, okay, there is no quantum team in IBM in India. So why not start a quantum team along with some volunteers? And that's what, some like-minded people, mostly from AI like me, came together, and we formed this quantum team. And we would go and learn together and go give talks and other things. And now I find that many of these team members are now very good at quantum. They write the cutting edge research papers and all of those things. And so that also brings me to that point that somehow Indians are able to pick up this thing very fast. I feel, we offered NPTEL program on NPTEL is for graduate students, UG students, but half the about out of 15,000, about half were school students who took that course. So it was all very surprising, but once we started this journey, I mean, there was no stopping. It's very exciting. You learn some things which are very, very intriguing, like a cricket ball. If it is a ball, I know if I throw it with this velocity in this direction, uh, then I know that with this much force, it will go and, reach you, or it will fall somewhere. I know it. But as soon as I start shrinking that cricket ball into smaller, 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 at some point of time, I throw it and it fills the whole room. Okay, so that's what happens. It becomes a quantum particle, and that particle has all this weird behavior. And now you're saying that, oh, I can use this particle special features to solve some of the unsolved problems of humanity, and I can, simulate nature with it, because nature, the small particles of nature, atoms, molecules, behave in the same fashion. So I think once you jump in, it hooks you in, then you're hooked to it, and you feel that you have to, it it raises so many questions in your mind, that you feel, now I need to figure this one out, I have to figure this out. And then you also start seeing that, oh, if I figure this out, maybe I can solve this problem. So I think it's sort of an unending box of wonders that you sort of set into. And I think that's what excites school children also to enter this field, because it's something very, I mean, it's not something we come across in our everyday life. So it feels special when you understand it and you try to do things with it.
What are you currently the most excited about in this field? Because I understand you did say that how, one thing leads to another, and one open question leads to the discovery of another. And it's just a continuous cycle
Yeah.
which just keeps you hooked into it. But what
Yeah.
currently for you is the most interesting aspect?
Oh yeah. So I'm clear that I'm not the person who is going to come up with the solution of, the chat GPT moment, if you might call it, for quantum. Okay. But I can see it will come out of India. Okay. So my whole energy now is focused on ensuring that in the next 2 years, out of India comes how somebody shows that on a real problem, quantum, I've used it using today's systems, and I'm solving an unsolved, or a problem which is exponentially faster, or much much cheaper way of doing it. And I'm convinced that it's going to come out of India, and I feel my role is to enable that. Okay, so that's what I feel. My destiny is to enable that.
Really interesting. How long do you how long before we achieve this state, this ideal state, or the this vision of that this vision of ours that we harbor, this vision of yours that you personally harbor? How long do you think before we achieve it?
See, the National Quantum Mission is a 8-year program. Okay, so by the turn of the century, there will be a lot of answers that people will have in terms of technology. Okay, but the question is, who first? Okay, so as I said, like for example, internet was made usable by Netscape and Google. AI was made usable by OpenAI. Okay, and ChatGPT. Somebody is going to make quantum usable for all of humanity. It's there, it's sitting in the lab right now. It will come out one day where it will be generally used to solve real business problems. Now my this thing is, it has to happen out of India. Okay, that boost has to come. Only then do we become a quantum economy. Okay, that we become a quantum nation only if we are the, I mean, maybe we are not the, I mean, in a sort of a, together all these solutions together have to build that quantum economy, right? So turn of the decade, many people would have done it, but I wanted that, in the next 2 years we see that come out of India. And in fact, my team, all of us, we are focused on achieving that. And hopefully, you'll see some great news coming out of India, where some fact, universities, some industrial labs, some industry together have solved a big enough problem which wows everybody and shows us the power of quantum, and then paves the way for many more such discoveries to follow.
Most definitely, touch wood. Okay, so we are at the cusp of the conclusion of this episode, and there's this little segment that we do. Dr. Subramaniam, what is your word to humanity at large?
I, to me, even in the book, the first chapter is opportunity. Okay, we all have an opportunity to rise above whatever we are, whether it is through in our minds, whether it is, our surroundings. Yes, there are several problems that we are facing right now, but each of them is an opportunity. And I see youngsters today, amazing, I mean, my kids, they do multi 10 different things, all of them very well. Okay, so I mean, how do I tell them you do this or that? I mean, there are 10 things they're doing so well. So they just, so people just have to pick. There is an opportunity to do so many things, and for all of us, opportunity is the word.
Dr. Subramaniam, thank you so very much for being part of this conversation and giving me the honor to talk to you over this entire quantum plethora of quantum stuff and the future of quantum computing with regard to our nation. It was a delightful conversation. It was wonderful and informative, and I believe it is bound to have a really profound impact on anybody and everybody who decides to hear it in its entirety. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Actually, I'm really happy that you called me here, and enabled and asked these very important and interesting questions, which I think, I mean, there are there are so many things for us to solve, but it's all very simple. It all comes down to just enabling the youth to just achieve their full potential. The day we do it, we've achieved it. We'll get back our full glory back. We'll be back in business. So yes, thanks, and I'm glad that you are a young person yourself who are treading down this path. So all the best to you also, and thank you so much.
Thank you so very much.